Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and boy do I have something exciting for you today, a full gameplay preview of the first Italian vehicle in World of Tanks. It is also the first vehicle that uses Wargaming's new auto-reloading mechanism, i.e. the full capabilities of having a single shotgun and also a magazine-style autoloader in World of Tanks. It's a Tier 8 Italian premium medium tank that will be coming to the shop fairly soon. This video will let you know everything there is to know about the Progetto 46, as I've played this vehicle for about 50 to 100 times now to try and get you a well-rounded opinion on the tank. And so stick around, I've got some Ace Tanker gameplay coming right up after I firstly try to demystify the positives and the negatives of the auto-reloading mechanism. So as this is the first Italian tank that will be available in the game, there are a series of novelties that we've got to check out. Firstly, all of the faces that are available. You do have unique Italian male crew, and also I went to the painstaking effort of completing the first series of medium missions for the Stug 4 on a press account to be able to unlock a female crew member as well. So they are available in the game, and the crew voices, they work perfectly, and I'll be showing you later on in the gameplay, and there's a selection of Italian ladies and of course national names to suit your fancy. Next up, there are also a bunch of Italian camouflages that you can apply to the vehicle. And ladies and gentlemen, possibly the most important thing to clarify in this video is that Italy's premium consumable is going to be spaghetti with meat sauce. Now, I'm not going to compare this vehicle on Tanks GG because it was literally just buffed today. Wargaming obviously felt that the vehicle needed a little bit of a tune-up before the community gets their hands on the first Italian vehicle by improving its dispersion when moving from 0.2 to 0.16, its dispersion when traversing the turret from 0.13 to 0.1, it increased its hull traverse speed up to 46 degrees a second, buffed its reloads for all remaining shells in the magazine, as I'm going to be highlighting in just a second, and its gun depression up to 9 degrees. And so what do you have to look forward to with this vehicle? Well, firstly, let's take a look at the firepower, and this is the crucial mechanic of the auto reloaders. And this 90mm autoloader, which can carry 3 rounds in its magazine, can reload it one by one. And as I'll be showing you in the gameplay, that allows a player who is aware of the situation to adapt their tank to best suit it. Now, immediately you might be thinking, isn't this just a better autoloader? And yes, it is, but it does have its drawbacks. Firstly, if you play this tank as a single shot medium, i.e. you fire a shell and then you wait, and then you fire a shell and then you wait, the vehicle takes 8 seconds to reload each shot. And 8 seconds per shot will give this tank a rate of fire of 7.5 with 240 alpha damage. That's the same as the Mutz, hardly impressive. However, let's say you want to delve deeper into the magazine and fire a second shot before you've reloaded the first. Well, now this shell is going to take 9 seconds to reload, which means that the overall rate of fire of the vehicle drops to 6.66, which is very mediocre for a Tier 8 medium. Now, let's say that's not quite enough. Another tank pops up and you've just got to absolutely finish that tank off. Well, now you're going to be reloading the final shell for 12 seconds, which means that your rate of fire drops down to 5, which is abysmal and a third worse than if you were firing the shells one by one. And so this means just because there's a target in front of you and you can unload shells at them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the right thing to do, because sure, while you might do the damage now, you kind of put your DPM down so low that you might not be able to shoot your way out of a prolonged engagement, or leave yourself vulnerable to a well-timed push by the enemy team who is maybe counting your shells. So apart from this, the other statistics of this gun are really nice. 212mm of penetration on its standard rounds and 259mm of penetration on its premium rounds. 0.33 accuracy and 2.1 seconds aim time gives this vehicle very respectable gun handling. And this is good news because the durability of the tank is incredibly lackluster. It has 1,400 hit points, which isn't too bad, but look at its armor. 60mm at the front, 30 at the side, which can be overmatched by all 91mm caliber guns. And its turret armor, not really that much better, 80 at the front and 60 at the side. This thing gets penned by everything, and if you ricochet, you should be thanking your lucky stars. And furthermore, this is a rather large vehicle. Take a look how it compares to the Cromwell, for example. It is a pretty fat tank, and it's a nice, easy target to hit from the side or even from the front. However, thankfully, the mobility of the vehicle, while it's not incredible, is definitely not terrible. It goes at 55 kilometers an hour forwards, 20 backwards, has a respectable traverse speed, especially with the buffs, and a nice power to weight ratio of 18.47, which will allow it to shift. Now, this big old meaty size, even if you do use a concealment crew, does give it rather mediocre camouflage when it's moving. When it's fully buffed, under 20%. So watch out for that if you want to play a real sneaky medium, then this might not be the one for you. And finally, view range wise, it's good news. 390 meters will allow you to spot for your team very well, even at long distances, and especially so if you choose to use coated optics on the tank. But you know what? I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's test it out on the battlefield. And so there we have it, something I was very happy to hear, that there was indeed Italian national crew voices in the game, and especially female Italian national crew voices. And as I mentioned, I put in a lot of effort to complete that series of missions. I must have played about 30-40 games to be able to do those 15 medium tank missions, and I was kind of struggling a little bit with medium tank mission 12 to set an enemy on fire, so I hope it was all worth it. So you guys and girls get to enjoy an Italian female voice inside World of Tanks. I'm not sure. I wonder if many of the other contributors have gone to that length of effort for you. Well, we'll see. Maybe they have. Maybe they have. Who knows? Possibly. Okay, so immediately you might be wondering, why aren't you firing? Lots of shells. Why are you waiting for so long? And that's because remember that if you dump out all of the shells in your magazine, that you're going to have a very long reload. If you've only fired one, it takes 8 seconds base. And so you're waiting for the stunk, and as soon as I hear that stunk, that means an extra shell is in, and I'm going to start to let loose and keep firing for as long as I feel is suitable, remember? Now, if you fire multiple shells, the reload goes from 8 seconds up to 9 seconds and then up to 12 seconds. And that's really where you start to absolutely destroy the DPM of this tank when you're starting to have to reload for 12 seconds. So I feel your best bet is to fire this vehicle either in single shots or to fire 2-round bursts. 2-round bursts can still be effective. But there's one thing I'd like to highlight, and that is that if you fire, all of the progress of the current reload is lost. So for example, let's say that you are 0.01 seconds away from loading an extra shell in the magazine and you're loading in to have a full magazine. And if you were to fire before the extra shell has gone in, you would effectively then only have 1 shell in the magazine because you have to fire one of the 2 that you hand loaded, and then you have a 9-second reload. Whereas if you'd waited for like that extra 0.01 second, you would have 2 shells in the magazine, and then you would have then only have an 8-second reload instead. So it really makes a big difference. Of course, there are times where you want to use your full magazine to be able to go ham to take out the T-3485M on the enemy team. Just look how long it takes for me to reload the magazine. Been reloading. Now we've got the second shell in there, and we're still reloading. Now we've got the short one at the end, and stunk, we got the third in. But you see that that's a big downtime for a tier 8 medium tank to have. And to only have 720 magazine in the damage, well, when I say only, it's still a nice amount. But you could spend forever reloading, and you lower your DPM to a point where it's not effective. And because, of course, you interrupt the reload process, it's just very, very dodgy. Now you'll notice I have a third in the magazine, but I choose not to fire it. Why? Because the Bulldog is on 240 hit points. He's a 50-50 if I do penetrate him to manage to kill him. Now if I fire that extra shell, then I have to spend 12 seconds reloading instead of taking 9 seconds and then 8 seconds, and I'm only a 50-50 to kill him. What happens if I fire and I low roll, and then he comes over the ridgeline at me? He'll get to shoot me 3 or 4 times before I manage to reload, and so that'd be very awkward for me. Actually, the Bulldog can't use an autoloader anymore, and there you go, I did low roll, right? I did low roll. And so by not firing the nightmare shell, because I knew it wasn't more than a 50-50 chance that we were going to kill him, I wait for the reload, and then we've got our magazine in the game, and we are bumping up our DPM, and that's really what's going to make and break a Progetto player. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be the best tanker in the world to play this tank, and that if beginners play this vehicle that they're going to be absolutely awful. That's definitely not the case. However, this vehicle is going to have quite a high skill cap, and if you're an advanced player who is aware of the situation and they can adapt their tank for what they need to do, whether it's to either play that single shot role or to kind of play the assassin little autoloader role, then it's going to be amazing for those players, and you are going to be so much more effective than a player who's kind of just holding down the mouse button at whatever they think that they can penetrate. A little test that I did, and a big thank you to Phil for this, we actually tried to use a Progetto to shoot a mouse, and A Progetto, if it literally just holds down its mouse button until the mouse dies, i.e. firing continuously even with an empty magazine, it takes 102 seconds to kill a mouse. However, if you take your time and wait for each shell to reload until you've got the mouse on low health and then unload the rest of your drum quickly, you could get it down to 74 seconds. So we're talking about literally killing tanks in a third time less if you use your magazine intelligently. Because obviously that's the DPM increase from 8 seconds reload up to 12, right? And so I'm not saying that this tank is going to be for everyone, but certainly as a player who's always looking for a challenge in World of Tanks, it's been really enjoyable to play this one. Alright, so we shut down the AMX M449 on the enemy team there with a couple of shells into his tracks, and that's really where this vehicle was feeling great for me during my playthrough of the tank. My playthrough, it's not like I finished it, it's not a storyline tank and I'm kind of done with it. But you get my point in my previewing of the vehicle, that if you can fire those 2-round bursts, that's kind of the sweet spot for the tank, I feel, because then you've only got 17 seconds to get your magazine back to fully operational, and yeah, just lovely, right? And this is where this tank is fantastic, because other autoloaders, maybe they got like a, say I'm playing in a Lorraine 40T, I would have needed both those shells to kill the 416, and now I've got kind of like a 30-second reload. However, this vehicle fires off 2, then it has to reload for 17 seconds, and now I can be right back in the game to support my team, and so it does feel quite frenetic, a nice kind of pace. Okay, let's count this out. We fire 1. Are we going to fire the second? I am, because I tried to go for the kill, so now I've only got 1 left. I've got 1 left, I've got 1 left. I'm waiting for the second to go in before I fire at the Tiger. Got the second. Okay, I fire. Now I'm down to 1 shell, and we've got it to finish off the SU. So you might be thinking, like, why did you wait? Why did you shoot the Tiger? Why did you wait to shoot the Tiger? Well, that's, of course, because I was waiting for the second shell to go back in. Otherwise, I would have cancelled the entire reload. And so if you rush the shot, you could put yourself in a completely terrible scenario for the vehicle. And I just can't wait to commentate on some Progetto and some auto-reloader gameplay, because obviously all of the high-tier Italian medium tanks are going to have these as well. So I can't wait to commentate on some of your epic rounds, or maybe if I manage to have a good round about, oh, was this the right decision to fully unload here? Oh no, he's going to lower his DPM to a point where he can't fight his way out of the situation now. It's going to be really interesting, and I have to admit, after playing this vehicle for about 50 to 100 times, as an experienced player who's always looking for the most that I can get from the game, it did feel a little bit dull to be playing vehicles where you don't have to think so much and you just fire casually. Now, right at the end of the game, you see me firing my first premium rounds, I believe, of the replay, and that's something I'd like to highlight as well, is that, oh, this is one of the most horrible things about the vehicle, is that you cannot reload individual shell types. So for example, you can't load a single high explosive round, or you can't load 2 APCR rounds and an armor piercing round. If you want to reload premium, you're going to have to empty your magazine completely to be able to reload the APCR shells in this tank. And that does feel a little bit frustrating for me, ladies and gents, because of course sometimes you need the 212 millimeters of penetration and you want to save the credits engaging in games like this, and then sometimes you're definitely going to need those 259 millimeters of penetration to engage against tier 9 and tier 10 tanks. And it feels like if you want to switch the ammunition out, then you really have to completely dump your DPM and go through that 12-second reload, then the 9-second, then the 8-second, rather than, maybe just putting in an APCR shell, firing off those 2 AP shells, and then going for an APCR round. But maybe that's something that Wargaming will change in the future, but I don't think that they will, because I guess it will be quite complicated to mix shells inside the drum for the server side. Maybe it's just a mechanic that they don't want to have in the game, and they're probably quite happy with what most people are going to do in this tank, and that's take far too many APCR rounds and just fire them off willy-nilly. So now I want to show you a few more examples of decision making in your Progetto 46, and there's a couple of things I'd like to highlight. Firstly, that you're going to get to hear some of the Italian male crew voices, and also that this is the unbuffed version of the Progetto that you're seeing here, and so that means that it's going to take 8.5 seconds for us to reload our first shell. It's going to take, I think it was 10 seconds to reload the second and 14 to reload the third. Although this isn't a version of the tank that I think that you'll ever get to play. It was just a weaker version. So you hear that we're waiting. We fired a single shot at the T-71, and we're just hopefully going to have an opportunity here to burst in one shell, and we're going to go for a second because we have a chance to kill him. We secure the kill, and now we're going to have to reload for a little while. And one thing that I just noticed is that the reload timer actually looks like it was working in this version. So maybe it's Wargaming's buff overnight that they haven't adjusted for the replays. Hopefully that'd be something that they could fix fairly pronto. But 6.87, that's because you can take into account crew skills, you can take into account your spaghetti with a meter sauce, you can take into account your vents, your gun rammer on this tank. So you can actually, that was 8.5 down to 6.87, and I believe the buffed version of the tank that I've been playing with, I think I've got like 6.46 reload if you're playing this with a single shot. So definitely gun rammer's very cool. So you'll notice now that I don't have an opportunity to assassinate the T-43 or the Chi-Ri in a single magazine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play single shot for a little while. I'm going to have my dabs, and I'm going to play as if I was like a Mutz or an FE4202, something like that. I'm going to completely forget that I was an autoloader and just focus on trying to lower their hit points and keep my DPM high. And that's probably one of the best things about an auto reloader. No, not ricocheting, but how annoying is it when you're playing in something like a Lorraine and then you bounce a shot because you're taking a chancy hit at an opponent, or you miss and then you have to reload the entire magazine. This vehicle, on the other hand, as long as you wait, as you could see that I'm doing there, to be able to get an extra shot in against the T-43, it's just absolutely beautiful to not have to reload completely. And so now you're getting an idea. You can actually see an indicator of how long these shells take to reload, and so you can see my thought process. It's wait, fire. Okay, missed the Reveillerise there, but now I realize, okay, look, we've got them into a position where we can start to push. So I'm going to come up over the ridgeline. I'm going to put one into the side of the Stridsvagn S1, and now this is where I'm going to use my 2 remaining shells to finish off the T-43, and I don't mind going deep on my magazine and then having this, look at this awful long reload. This is the nerfed version of the tank. It was when it took 14 seconds to reload a single shell. Still going. There you go. 14 seconds to be able to get in that shot. It was really, really long. But you won't have to worry about that too much now, because as I did mention, Wargaming buffed this literally today. And so while it's not so disastrous to go deep into your drum as it was previously with only 12 seconds, you still want to avoid it. But finally, there's one thing that you must take into account, and that is that the intra-clip reload of the Progetto is 2 seconds. And so let's imagine you've got a full magazine and you fire. Well, what are your 2 options? Well, obviously, they're to either wait 2 seconds and to fire again. And if you do this, this will result in 1 shell in the magazine and a 9-second reload, but you've managed to get 2 rounds down at the target. Or alternatively, you can wait 8 seconds instead, which is 6 seconds longer, and then you'll have 2 shells in the magazine and then an 8-second subsequent reload. And another thing that you must take into account is that this 8 seconds will get reduced by crew skills, but remember that 2 seconds intra-clip reload will not. And so consequently, while it can be very tempting to fire off a couple of shots, it really does lower your single shot damage per minute of the tank in a prolonged engagement. And so here's our round from Arctic region. It was a high caliber medal for our 4,147 damage. Our 7 kills netted us a top gun, and we dealt most of that at long range, where we don't have to expose our very weak armor, so we get a tank sniper as well. 1,409 base experience points was enough to get an ace tanker, although I expect that the ace tanker of this vehicle will be very much higher if this comes to public release in the next few weeks. And we make a cool 106,000 credits profit, as we didn't fire any APCR rounds until kind of unnecessarily at the end. And all that's really left to do is to highlight that I played this tank so much, and I guess I did okay in the vehicle, that we managed to get our first mark of excellence on a press account. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Italian mark of excellence will be a little toy tank on the barrel. Definitely something to look forward to, and I guess the best of you will try and get a whole platoon on your barrel, right? And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, my most exhaustive tank review probably of all time on this channel. I really hope you appreciate the effort that I went to. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, but if you felt like you hated it, then screw you. I'm only kidding. Give the video a dislike and sod off. You're not welcome here. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of you have to say about the Progetto 46 in the comments, and what do you think about the auto reloading mechanic and how Wargaming have implemented it into the game. And finally, I'm sure some of you are trying to wonder how you're going to get your hands on this vehicle, and as of yet, ladies and gents, there is no news news, but I would expect, considering, you know, the contributors have got their hands on the vehicles, that you'll probably be coming up in the next few weeks or months. And stay tuned to the channel for all things Italian, auto-reloading, and World of Tanks. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.